A Werewolf Shifter Romance, written by Amelia Hart. Chapter 1. Broken Reflections. The fluorescent lights of Miller's diner buzzed overhead like angry wasps, casting everything in that sickly yellow glow that made even the freshest coffee look stale. Zara Reed moved between tables with practiced efficiency, her worn sneakers silent against the checkered linoleum. 23 years old, and this was her life, slinging hash browns to truckers who barely looked up from their phones. She'd been working the late shift for 3 years now, ever since she'd landed in this forgotten corner of Colorado. The mountains loomed outside the windows like sleeping giants, their peaks lost in perpetual mist. Perfect place to disappear. Perfect place to forget what she really was. The town of Cedar Falls had maybe 3,000 residents on a good day, most of them families who'd lived here for generations. They knew each other's business, each other's secrets. But they'd accepted Zara as just another drifter looking for a quiet life. If only they knew the truth. "Order up." Frank's gruff voice cut through her thoughts. The old cook had been here since the diner opened in 1987, and he treated the grill like a war zone. His gray hair was perpetually dusted with flour, and his thick fingers moved across the griddle with surprising grace. Zara grabbed the plates, ignoring the way her hands trembled slightly. They'd been doing that more lately, especially when the moon grew full. The trembling wasn't the only sign. Her dreams had been getting more vivid, filled with running through forests on 4 legs, the taste of night air sharp on her tongue. She'd wake up with dirt under her fingernails and scratches on her arms that she couldn't explain, but she pushed those thoughts away, just like she'd been doing for years. Table 6 was a regular. Bill Henley, a local contractor who came in every Tuesday for meatloaf and complaints about his ex-wife. His weathered hands wrapped around his coffee mug like a lifeline, and his eyes held the kind of weariness that came from too many years of hard living. But today, something felt different. The air itself seemed charged, like the moments before a thunderstorm. Zara's skin prickled with awareness she tried desperately to suppress. "Thanks, honey," Bill mumbled, not looking up from his newspaper. The headline screamed about missing hikers in the national forest. 3rd group this month. The accompanying photo showed a search and rescue team combing through dense undergrowth, their faces grim with the knowledge that they probably wouldn't find anything worth finding. Zara's stomach clenched as she walked away. She'd learned to ignore the whispers in her blood, the way her senses sharpened when danger was near. Learned to pretend she was just another broken human trying to make ends meet. But the memories always found her, especially in the quiet hours before dawn, when the diner was empty and her mind had nowhere else to hide. Screams in the darkness, the smell of blood and burning wood. Her mother's voice, desperate and fierce. "Run, little star. Run and never look back." The sound of claws against bark. Heavy breathing in the forest. Yellow eyes watching from the shadows. Zara shook her head, forcing the images away. That was 11 years ago. She was 12 then, small and terrified, watching her world burn from the safety of the tree line. The humans who found her wandering Highway 24 3 days later had no idea what she really was. Sarah Martinez, a social worker with kind eyes and infinite patience, had taken her in, asked gentle questions that Zara could never answer truthfully. Social services had done their best, but she'd aged out of the system at 18 with nothing but a high school diploma and secrets that could get her killed. She'd tried college for a semester, but the constant noise, the crowds, the way people looked at her when she reacted too quickly to sounds they couldn't hear, it had been too much. So she'd drifted, taking jobs in small towns where nobody asked too many questions. Cedar Falls had been different, though. Frank had hired her without checking references, probably because good help was hard to find in the middle of nowhere. The work was steady, the tips decent enough to keep her in the tiny apartment above Murphy's Hardware. It wasn't much, but it was hers. The bell above the door chimed as another customer left, the cold October air swirling in behind them. Zara pulled her cardigan tighter around her shoulders, noting how the fabric hung loose on her frame. She'd always been small, but stress had a way of making her even thinner. Her reflection in the coffee pot showed the same face she'd worn for years. Unremarkable brown hair that caught gold in the right light, green eyes that seemed too old for her face, and a small scar through her left eyebrow from that terrible night so long ago. But lately, something else flickered behind her eyes when she caught glimpses of herself in mirrors or windows. Something that made her stomach twist with equal parts hope and terror. The dinner rush had been lighter than usual, probably because of the storm warnings. The weather service had been tracking a massive front moving in from the west, promising the kind of snow that would shut down the mountain passes for days. People were smart to stay home, to batten down and wait it out. As she counted out the register, calculating tips and sorting bills with mechanical precision, the bell chimed again. Frank had already left through the back, muttering about getting home to Martha before the roads turned into skating rinks. So Zara called out without looking up, "Sorry, we're closed. I'm not here for the food." The voice hit her like a physical blow. Deep, rough, with an undertone that made every instinct she'd been suppressing rear up in recognition. Alpha. The word blazed through her mind before she could stop it, accompanied by a rush of sensation that nearly brought her to her knees. Zara's hands stilled on the cash drawer. Her heart hammered against her ribs, and she could smell her own fear sweat mixing with something else. Something wild that had been dormant for so long she'd almost forgotten it existed. Slowly she raised her head and felt her world tilt sideways. The man standing by the door was tall, easily 6'2", with black hair that looked like he'd been running his hands through it. His features were sharp, aristocratic, with high cheekbones and a jaw that could cut glass, but it was his eyes that stopped her breath. The color of storm clouds, gray with flecks of blue that seemed to shift in the diner's harsh light. A tribal tattoo wound around his right forearm, disappearing beneath the rolled sleeves of a dark leather jacket that probably cost more than she made in a month. But it wasn't his appearance that made her breath catch. It was the power that rolled off him in waves, invisible but unmistakable. The air itself seemed to bend around him, and Zara felt an answering pull deep in her chest. Something she'd been denying for so long she'd almost forgotten it existed. "Who are you?" she managed, her voice steadier than she felt. His nostrils flared slightly, and she watched his expression shift from casual interest to sharp focus. Those storm-gray eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that made her want to run. "My name is Caden Frost. And you?" He took a step closer, and she could smell him now. Pine forests and winter air, with something darker underneath that made her pulse race. Something that called to parts of her she'd buried so deep she'd thought they were gone forever. "You're definitely not human. I don't know what you're talking about." The lie came automatically, honed by years of practice. But even as the words left her mouth, she could feel something stirring inside her, responding to his presence like a tuning fork struck just right. Caden smiled, and it wasn't entirely friendly. "Your scent says otherwise. You can hide among them, little wolf. But you can't hide from me." The endearment sent a shock through her system that left her gasping. No one had called her that since her mother. In those last desperate moments before everything went dark. Zara's hands clenched into fists, and she felt her control wobble dangerously. "You need to leave," she said, backing toward the kitchen. "Now." "I'm afraid I can't do that." He moved with fluid grace, cutting off her escape route without seeming to hurry. Every step was calculated, predatory, like he was herding prey. "I've been tracking something, and the trail led me here, to you. I don't know anything about any trail." But even as she said it, Zara could feel the lie crumbling. Her senses were sharpening against her will, showing her things she'd trained herself not to see. The way his shoulders filled out that jacket, the controlled power in his movements, the faint scars on his hands that spoke of battles fought and won. "Your wolf knows me," Caden said softly, and the certainty in his voice made her knees weak. "I can see it fighting to get free. How long has it been since you shifted?" "I can't." The words slipped out before she could stop them, raw with years of buried pain. "I mean, I don't, can't, or won't." His voice gentled slightly, but his eyes remained sharp, assessing. "There's a difference." Zara's breath came in short gasps. The fluorescent light seemed too bright, the air too thin. Every instinct screamed at her to run, but her feet felt rooted to the floor. This was what she'd been hiding from, what she'd spent 11 years pretending didn't exist. "Please," she whispered. Just go. Instead, Caden took another step forward, and the full weight of his presence crashed over her like a wave. Power. Command. The unmistakable call of an alpha to his pack. And deep inside, something that had been sleeping for 11 long years began to stir and stretch its wings. Chapter 2. The Alpha's Call. The silence in Miller's diner stretched between them like a taut wire, ready to snap at the slightest provocation. Zara's heart hammered against her ribs as Caden Frost stood barely 10 feet away, his storm-gray eyes never leaving her face. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead, casting shadows that seemed to dance around his imposing frame. I can hear your heartbeat, he said quietly, tilting his head in a way that was distinctly predatory. It's racing like a rabbit's. Why are you so afraid? I'm not afraid, Zara lied, lifting her chin with defiance she didn't feel. I just want you to leave. Caden's mouth curved into something that might have been a smile if it had held any warmth. Liar. He took another step forward, and the air between them seemed to crackle with electricity. But I'll play along. For now. She pressed her back against the counter, trapped between the cash register and his approaching form. The familiar weight of the diner, her safe space for 3 years, suddenly felt oppressive. The checkered floor, the red vinyl booths, even Frank's coffee-stained apron hanging on its hook by the grill. All of it seemed to shrink around her. What do you want? She managed, proud that her voice didn't shake. Answers. His gaze swept over her, taking in details she wished he wouldn't notice. The way her oversized uniform couldn't quite hide her lean frame. The defensive set of her shoulders. The scar that bisected her left eyebrow like a lightning bolt. Starting with your real name. Zara Reed. It wasn't technically a lie. She'd kept her first name, changed only the surname when she'd aged out of foster care. Reed had belonged to the social worker who'd found her on that highway 11 years ago. A kind woman who'd asked no questions when 18-year-old Zara had requested the documentation. Reed. He tested the name, rolling it around on his tongue like fine wine. That's not the name you were born with. Her breath caught. How could you possibly... Because I've been tracking your real identity for 3 weeks. Caden pulled something from his jacket pocket, and Zara's world tilted sideways. It was a photograph, old and creased, showing a family of 4 standing in front of a log cabin. A man with kind eyes and graying temples. A woman with flowing dark hair and a radiant smile. 2 children, a boy of perhaps 15, and a girl who couldn't have been more than 12. The girl with green eyes and a gap-toothed grin that Zara remembered feeling self-conscious about. Where did you get that? Her voice came out as barely a whisper. The Nightshade Pack kept detailed records before they were destroyed. Caden's expression softened fractionally as he watched the color drain from her face. Zara Nightshade, daughter of Luna Isabella and Alpha Marcus. The only survivor of the massacre that wiped out one of the oldest bloodlines in North America. The name hit her like a physical blow. Nightshade. She hadn't heard it spoken aloud since that terrible night when screams had torn through the forest and the smell of smoke had choked the mountain air. Her knees buckled, and she had to grip the counter to stay upright. They're all dead, she said, the words scraping her throat raw. Everyone. The whole pack. I know. Caden stepped closer, close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body. But you're not. And that makes you incredibly valuable. The word valuable sent ice through her veins. I'm nobody. Just a waitress trying to get by. You're the last Nightshade Luna. His voice dropped to something that was almost gentle. Do you have any idea what that means? She shook her head, though fragments of half-remembered conversations flickered through her mind. Her mother's voice, urgent and low. Our line is special, little star. Promise me you'll remember. But she'd been 12, more interested in climbing trees and catching fireflies than learning about bloodlines and pack politics. It means, Caden continued, that you carry power in your blood that most shifters can only dream of. Healing, leadership, the ability to bind packs together or tear them apart with a single command. You're wrong. But even as she said it, Zara could feel something stirring deep inside her chest, like embers being breathed back to life. I can't even shift properly. I'm broken. Show me. The command hit her like a thunderclap, reverberating through every cell in her body. This wasn't a request or a suggestion. It was an alpha's direct order, backed by power that made her bones ache with the need to obey. No. She gritted her teeth, fighting against the compulsion. I won't. Caden's eyebrows rose. Interesting. Most wolves can't resist a direct command from me. I'm not most wolves, Zara snapped, then immediately regretted the admission. No, he agreed, his voice taking on a dangerous edge. You're not. The air around them began to shimmer, and Zara felt her skin prickle with awareness. Caden's human facade was slipping, revealing something wild and predatory underneath. His eyes darkened from storm gray to almost black, and she could swear she saw them flash gold for just an instant. Shift, he commanded again, and this time the power behind it was overwhelming. Pain lanced through her body as something inside her responded to his call. Her bones began to ache, her muscles cramping as they tried to reshape themselves. She could feel her canine teeth lengthening, her fingernails sharpening into claws. But just as it had happened countless times before, the transformation stuttered and stopped halfway, leaving her gasping and shaking. I can't, she sobbed, doubling over as the partial shift reversed itself. Something's wrong with me. It always stops. When she looked up, Caden was staring at her with an expression she couldn't read. That's not possible. The nightshade line has never produced a defective wolf. Well, congratulations, Zara said bitterly. You found the first one. He was silent for a long moment, studying her with those unsettling eyes. Then, without warning, he moved. 1 second he was standing near the door. The next he was directly in front of her, close enough that she could see the flecks of blue in his irises. May I? He asked, lifting his hand toward her face. May you what? Touch you. There's something I need to check. Every instinct screamed at her to refuse, but there was something in his expression, a professional curiosity that overrode the predatory intensity. Against her better judgment, she nodded. His fingers were warm as they traced the scar through her eyebrow, following its path with gentle precision. This isn't from an accident, he murmured. It's a ritual mark. What? Someone carved this into you deliberately. Recently, judging by the healing pattern. His thumb brushed across the raised skin, and she shivered at the contact. Within the last 5 or 6 years, Zara's mind reeled. That's impossible. I don't remember. Suppression marks are designed to be forgotten, Caden explained, his hand still cupping her face. Someone wanted to keep you from shifting. The question is why? Before she could process this revelation fully, the diner's front window exploded inward. Glass showered across the floor as 3 massive shapes burst through, landing in crouches that were distinctly inhuman. Their eyes gleamed yellow in the harsh light, and Zara could smell the wild musk that clung to their clothes. Well, well, drawled the leader, a man with silver-streaked hair and a face like carved granite. Caden Frost, should have known you'd beat us here. Caden moved so fast he seemed to blur, placing himself between Zara and the intruders. Victor Grayson, still breaking windows instead of using doors, I see. The name sent a chill down Zara's spine, though she didn't know why. Something about it felt familiar, like a half-remembered nightmare. The girl comes with us, Victor said, his voice carrying its own note of command. She belongs to my pack now. Like hell she does. Caden's power flared, filling the small space with pressure that made Zara's ears pop. She's under my protection. Victor laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Your protection? You've gotten soft, Frost. The girl is Nightshade. She's mine by right of conquest. You mean by right of murder, Caden snarled. Semantics. Victor's eyes fixed on Zara, and she felt pinned like a butterfly on a board. Hello, little niece. You've grown up beautifully. The word niece hit her like a sledgehammer. Suddenly the familiarity made sense. Those eyes, that cruel mouth. She'd seen them before, in the shadows of her nightmares. Uncle Victor, she whispered, and watched his smile widen. You remember? Good. That will make this so much easier. You killed them, Zara said, her voice gaining strength. You killed my family. I freed them, Victor corrected, from the burden of obsolete bloodlines and outdated traditions. but I saved the best for last." He gestured to his companions, and they began to spread out, flanking Caden with practiced ease. The Alpha's stance shifted, becoming more balanced, more dangerous. "Zara," Caden said without taking his eyes off the threat. "When I give the signal, run. Don't look back, don't stop. Just run. I won't leave you." "You will," he commanded, and she felt that compulsion again, weaker now but still present. "This isn't your fight." "Oh, but it is," Victor purred. "It's always been her fight. She just didn't know it yet." The silence stretched taut, and Zara could feel violence gathering in the air like an approaching storm. Her heart hammered against her ribs, and somewhere deep inside, that sleeping thing stirred again, responding to the danger that surrounded them both. Then Victor smiled, showing teeth that were too sharp to be entirely human. "Take her." Chapter 3. Forced Paths. The cold bite of early winter clung to the air, as Zara and Caden found themselves hurtling through the dense forest that bordered the small town of Cedar Falls. The night was thick with mist and silence, broken only by the crunch of dried leaves beneath their feet and the occasional distant howl. The assault in the diner had been brutal and swift. Victor Grayson's mercenaries pursued them with lethal intent, forcing their escape from the only sanctuary Zara had known. Zara's heart pounded in her chest, every beat a resounding reminder of everything she'd lost, and everything she had yet to discover. Her feet stumbled over twisted roots as her mind replayed the confrontation. Victor's cruel revelation of blood ties had left a jagged wound, but it was the command in Caden's tone that pressed heavily on her shoulders. Trust him, no matter the cost. They reached the border of Frostpack territory just as the moon broke through the cloud cover, painting the forest in silver light. Caden slowed, his senses stretched taut. Listening, the tension curled in the air like smoke from a smoldering fire. "Easy now," he whispered. "We're not alone." From the shadows, figures emerged, wolves of the Frost Pack, their eyes glowing with feline intensity. Despite the chill, their presence was warm, a shield against the cold night and an unspoken promise of protection. The border was marked by ancient stones, half swallowed by moss and roots, but still humming with the power of old magic. Caden touched one of the stones lightly, murmuring words in a language that had been lost to most, but preserved by the pack's elders. As the incantation faded, a hidden gate groaned open, revealing a world protected from prying eyes and dangerous enemies. Inside the sanctuary, the air was thick with the scent of pine and earth, a stark contrast to the sterile town Zara had left behind. Torches flickered along the carved wooden walls, throwing shadows that danced like restless spirits. It was a place steeped in history, a sanctuary where her ancestors had gathered and ruled. Zara felt exposed beneath watchful eyes as she was led deeper into the heart of the pack's territory. The elders were an imposing group, some as old as the mountains themselves, their faces etched with wisdom and time, yet their gazes were heavy with doubt and expectation. "You bear the nightshade blood," one of the elders said, his voice like gravel over stone. "But after all these years you return broken and untrained." "I'm nothing like the Luna you knew," Zara said quietly, the words heavy with self-doubt. "Yet the signs are clear," another elder said, stepping forward to reveal a scar identical to Zara's on his own arm. "Your power is dormant, but it sleeps, waiting for the right moment to awaken." Days passed in a blur of training and learning, each moment a test of Zara's resolve. She was surrounded by shifters of all ranks, alphas blazing with raw force, betas stalwart in their loyalty, omegas with quiet strength beneath their meek exteriors. She watched and learned, her own body aching with the strain of resisting the power simmering beneath her skin. But the Frost Pack wasn't just a community. It was a hierarchy steeped in rules and politics. Alliances shifted like winds, and trust had to be earned at every turn. Zara sensed the weight of expectation pressing on her from all sides. Not just to survive, but to lead. One night, as she sat alone on the edge of a frozen pond, a young beta approached quietly. His name was Nolan, with sharp features and eyes that held kindness, but also weariness. "You don't have to do this alone," he said softly. "We're all here to help." Zara looked up, her breath curling in the icy air. "Help? I've been running for so long I forget what that means." He smiled gently. "It means you belong." The weight of those words settled over her like a balm. The feeling was new and terrifying, trust that didn't break under pressure. But with belonging came responsibility. The stolen moments of peace were tainted by the ever-present threat of Victor. His reach was long, his vendetta against Zara and the Frostpact deeply personal. It was during one of the training sessions that Zara surprised even herself. A fellow shifter took a heavy blow to the ribs during a spar, falling hard. Without thinking, Zara reached out, her hands glowing with a faint, warm light that spread over the wound. The flesh knit together under her touch, the pain fading like morning mist. Gasps echoed in the training hall. Even Caden stopped, his usual stern expression giving way to stark disbelief. "That light," an elder whispered. "It belongs only to Lunas." Zara's heart thundered. She was more than just a broken Omega. That night, beside the campfire where crackling flames danced beneath a tapestry of stars, Caden shared parts of himself he'd kept hidden for years. The heavy burden of command, the ghosts of failures past, and the fear that he might lose those he had sworn to protect. "Leadership can be a lonely place," he said quietly. "Sometimes I wonder if I'm strong enough to carry it all." Zara met his gaze, seeing not just the alpha, but the man beneath. The walls he'd built around himself began to crumble, brick by brick. "You're not alone," she whispered, the words a balm for both their souls. The fragile threads of trust and connection grew, weaving a delicate bond neither dared to name. In shared glances and stolen silences, they began to find something neither expected. Hope. But shadows gathered relentlessly. Victor's presence was a constant threat, a dark cloud looming over their sanctuary. Every whispered warning, every patrol into the surrounding woods reminded Zara that the past was never far behind. They trained harder, prepared for the inevitable clash. But deep down, Zara knew that the battle was no longer just about survival. It was about claiming the power that had been denied to her for too long. One evening, as the full moon bathed the forest in ethereal light, Caden stood beside her. "You're ready for what comes next," he said, his voice steady but full of promise. Zara nodded, her resolve hardening. The road ahead was perilous, but she was no longer the lost girl running from her shadow. She was the last Nightshade Luna. And soon, they all would kneel. The Elders' Council room was vast and circular, its walls adorned with ancient symbols that glowed faintly under the moonlight, filtering through high windows. Every word spoken within carried weight. Every glance was a silent message. Zara could feel the eyes of the oldest pack members weighing her worth, searching for evidence of the Luna she was supposed to be. Caden stood beside her, silent but unwavering, a pillar of strength she wasn't sure she deserved. His presence calmed the swirling storm inside her, reminding her that she wasn't completely alone in this new world. "There will be trials," one elder intoned, voice echoing like thunder. "To prove your claim." Zara swallowed hard, but met their gaze with the flicker of defiance she'd been nurturing. "I will not be broken again." Chapter 4. Flames Between Shadows. Tension hung thick in the Frostpack's training grounds, the scent of pine mingling with sweat and anticipation. Zara's muscles ached from hours of combat practice, but it was the weight of eyes on her, judging, waiting, that pressed hardest. The full moon had risen, its silver light bathing the clearing and stirring something wild deep within her. Caden was there, as always, his presence both commanding and comforting. He exuded strength, the unmistakable aura of an alpha unchallenged in his domain. His storm-gray eyes watched her with a mixture of scrutiny and something softer. There was a spark of tension between them, invisible yet palpable, drawing them closer even as they resisted. The pack gathered, their forms shifting fluidly between human and wolf, a mesmerizing dance of power and grace. It was a ritual of survival, a test of wills and strength, and Zara was determined not to falter. Their instructor, a grizzled beta named Rowan, barked commands as the pack paired off for sparring. Zara's opponent was Nolan, the beta who had first offered her kindness. His strikes were measured, designed to challenge but not to harm. As they circled, the energy between Zara and Nolan pulsed with an undercurrent of unspoken worry. Victor's threat still loomed, and every training session felt like preparing for a war they couldn't avoid. But it wasn't Nolan who captured Zara's attention. It was Caden, standing just beyond the ring, radiating raw authority. At one point, their eyes locked, and an electric current passed through her. She looked away first, heart pounding. Suddenly, a bark cut through the night, a summons from the pack. Rowan was injured, a nasty gash down his side. As Nolan rushed to his aid, Zara's hands instinctively glowed with that same healing light from before. She rushed forward, the warmth of her touch knitting torn flesh and easing pain. The pack watched in awe and whispered among themselves. This was no Omega. This was their Luna reborn. Later, around the fire, tension gave way to whispered conversations and stolen glances. Caden approached Zara, his expression unreadable but vulnerable. "You're pushing yourself too hard," he said softly. "You don't have to carry this burden alone." Zara shook her head stubbornly. "If I don't, who will? The pack is dying. Victor's poison is spreading." Caden sighed deeply. "I fight to protect them every day. But I need you, your strength, your spirit." That night, beneath a canopy of stars, their barriers began to crumble. A brush of hands, a tentative touch, and for the first time, the possibility of something more flickered between them. But danger was never far. Rumors of Victor's movements reached the pack. Raids, shifting alliances, betrayals. The political landscape of the supernatural world was as deadly as any battle. In a stolen moment, Zara revealed to Caden the full story of her childhood. The massacre, the years of exile, the silence of her dormant power. He listened, silent and steady, offering no judgment, only understanding. "You were never weak," he told her. "You were surviving. And surviving is the first step toward rising." Their growing bond was complicated by the relentless demands of leadership and war. Zara found herself torn between duty and desire, the fragile threads of romance interwoven with the harsh realities around them. One evening, as moonlight bathed the training grounds, Caden pulled Zara close. The moment hung suspended, heavy with promise and fear. "If we survive this," he whispered, "there will be time for everything else." Zara's reply was lost in the shadows as they shared their first tentative kiss, an unspoken vow amid flames and shadows. The nights grew colder as the days dwindled, yet the fire within the pack burned fierce. The political alliances among the surrounding packs were fragile, whispering rumors of betrayal and bloodshed. Each day, Zara felt the weight of their expectations settle heavier on her shoulders. She was not just training to fight Victor, she was training to lead, to heal wounds both seen and unseen. One afternoon, she found herself alone with Caden by a crystalline lake that mirrored the gray sky. The tension between them was a magnetic pull the more they tried to deny it. She wrestled with forbidden thoughts, desire and fear entwined. What did it mean to give a part of herself to a man whose world was so different from hers? Caden broke the silence, his voice low and measured. "You carry the weight of ghosts, Zara, but you don't have to face them alone." Her gaze dropped to the water's edge, ripples distorting her reflection. "I was taught to hide, to be small, but here with you I feel seen." He reached for her hand, his touch gentle but grounding. "Then stop hiding. We'll face the storms together." The storm came sooner than either expected. News arrived that Victor's pack had attacked a nearby village, a brutal warning sent to rattle their resolve. The delicate threads of peace were unraveling and war loomed. Inside the pack's halls, meetings stretched late into the night. Councils argued over strategy and alliances, each voice a blend of hope and fear. Zara found herself caught between the old ways and the new. Aluna meant to unite, but still learning to stand. Despite the gathering darkness, moments of light flickered between her and Caden. One evening, while sheltering from a biting wind, they shared whispered confessions of dreams long buried. The kiss they had dared under the silver moon ignited a fire that neither could ignore. Yet Zara's heart remained conflicted. Could she trust this power inside her? Could she trust the man she was beginning to rely on? The shadows surrounding them whispered that trust was a luxury they no longer had. But with every breath, with every fierce heartbeat, Zara steeled herself. The fight was not just external, it was within, and she was determined not to lose. In the quiet hours before dawn, Zara stood atop a ridge overlooking the pack's territory. The wind tugged at her hair, carrying scents of pine and distant threats. She clenched her fists, muscles taut with the promise of battles to come. Her thoughts drifted to her mother's voice, a soft memory guiding her through stormy nights. "Strength comes not from the bite of your claws," her mother had said, "but from the courage to stand when all seems lost." The path ahead was uncertain, a labyrinth of danger and hope intertwined. For the first time, Zara understood that her journey was not just about reclaiming lost power, but about forging a new legacy. Later that day, under the watchful gaze of the pack elders, Zara was called to speak. Her words trembled at first, but soon she found her voice steady, carrying the conviction born from pain and determination. "We will face the darkness," she declared, not as broken pieces, but as one. The pack responded with muted but growing cheers, the fire of unity kindling in their eyes. Meanwhile, Caden prepared for the next inevitable confrontation. Armor polished, weapons sharpened, but the weight of leadership bore heavily on his broad shoulders. As he met Zara's gaze, he saw not fear, but the fierce spark of a Luna awakening. Together, they stood on the precipice of war, their bond the fragile armor against a world determined to tear them apart. The days that followed were a tempest of activity. Zara's mornings began before the sun, training alongside seasoned fighters who tested her limits. Each strike, each block, each controlled breath was a step toward mastering the beast inside her. Pain sharpened her focus, and with it, resolve. But it wasn't just physical strength that she needed. It was the trust of those she would lead. At meetings under ancient, towering trees, the elder shifters debated fiercely over alliances and strategies. Some doubted her, whispering of the broken Omega returned too late. Others saw in her a glimmer of hope, a chance at new beginnings. Between these moments, stolen conversations with Caden grounded her. They spoke of dreams deferred, of fears buried deep. His voice was an anchor in a sea of uncertainty, and when he looked at her, as a partner, not just a packmate, Zara felt something stir, a tentative hope that perhaps she was more than her past. A sudden raid on a neighboring pack rattled their ranks, a stark reminder of the venom coursing through supernatural politics. Each act of violence was a message, a warning etched in blood. Zara channeled her growing power to heal wounded shifters, earning respect and a cautious reverence. At night, beneath endless stars, their bond deepened. The kiss shared in secrecy was a spark, igniting a fire that promised warmth even in the coldest battles. But fear lingered, the shadow of betrayal never far. Yet amidst the turmoil, Zara's voice grew stronger among the pack. In council chambers and training grounds, she became a symbol, not just of survival, but of rising from ashes with fierce determination. Her heart beat in time with the pack's growing confidence, each day bringing them closer to the reckoning with Victor that none could avoid. Chapter 5. Shadows of Blood. The fragile peace shattered like glass beneath the weight of secrets long suppressed. Zara's world tore apart swiftly and mercilessly, the revelations raining down in cold torrents that left her reeling. The night had been supposed to be a silent vigil at the pack's border, a ritual to honor those lost and to steel hearts for battles ahead. Instead, terror hit like an unseen blade. Scouts brought word of betrayal. Members of the Frost Pack had been captured, dragged into darkness by forces they trusted. But it was the secrets unmasked that cut deepest. Victor Grayson, the rival alpha whose shadow loomed over every corner of Zara's new life, was not merely an enemy from another pack. He was family. "Uncle," she whispered the word as if saying it aloud could shatter the nightmare. Victor's face, cruel and merciless, haunted her memories, twisting everything she thought she knew into bitter shards. He had orchestrated the massacre of the Nightshade lineage, the blood that ran through Zara's veins, to bind their power to himself through a dark ritual of blood and fire. The brutal truth broke open wounds that had barely begun to heal. Caden sat by her side, his arm a steady anchor. But even his strength faltered beneath the weight of betrayal. "We will fight," he vowed, voice low and fierce. "For the pack. For you." The Frost Pack mobilized, but the battle lines were more tangled than any had realized. Loyalties fractured, and trust shattered. Among the fighters, whispers flew like arrows. Who could be trusted? Who had been working for Victor all along? In the chaos, Zara was torn away. An ambush forced her separation from Caden and the pack. Alone, vulnerable, she faced the crushing despair of isolation and a terrifying truth. The darkness had infiltrated her sanctuary. But even in the depths of night, a spark of Luna burned bright. Zara discovered reserves of power she had feared to claim. Her healing touch became fierce and wild. Her senses sharpened until every sound, every scent, was a weapon in itself. She was no longer a broken Omega, no longer the frightened survivor. The Luna within stirred with a roar that shook the very earth beneath her feet. Yet, power came with a price. To wield it fully, Zara had to face the blood price of her heritage. The dark rituals, the ancient curses, and the twisted family ties that bound her fate to Victor and the shattering war unfolding. In a moment of despair and desperate courage, Zara made the choice to confront the enemy alone. It was a decision that would change everything. Night cloaked the forest as she stepped onto the path leading toward the ruins where Victor's rituals were rumored to be performed. The cold gnawed at her bones, but heat flared within. A blaze of determination forged in pain. This confrontation was not just about vengeance. It was about reclaiming her lineage, breaking the chains that had bound her family to centuries of violence, and forging a new destiny from the ashes. As she moved silently through the shadows, the past and future collided. Victor awaited, his dark power pulsing in the air like a living thing, eager to consume or be consumed. Zara's heart pulsed with a steady rhythm, a drumbeat of courage and defiance. This night would prove who she was, prey or predator, broken or whole, shattered or reborn. The battle for her soul, and the soul of the pack, was about to begin. The revelation stopped Zara cold, each heartbeat hammering louder in her ears. Could it truly be? Her uncle, the man who had stolen her past and threatened her future? She remembered the faces of those lost, the screams echoing through the forest on that terrible night, and the cold betrayal that had marked her as prey. The Frost Pack was crumbling under the strain. Trust was a precious commodity, and whispers of possible traitors spread like wildfire. Caden's voice was a constant reassurance, but even he struggled to keep his pack united. His leadership was tested as never before, fighting battles both visible and unseen. Zara knew that the coming war was no longer just external. The strongest threat came from within. Separated from the pack during a fierce skirmish, Zara was forced to face Victor alone. Her breaths came ragged, steps faltering as she ventured deeper into the night. But in the biting cold, her power flared fiercely, stronger and purer with every moment. She embraced it, the fierce energy igniting a fire in her veins. The ancient curse binding the Nightshade bloodline to Victor's dark rituals threatened to consume her, but Zara's will was unbreakable. Every battle scar, every painful memory forged her resolve. Standing on the edge of the ruins, she prepared to face her deepest fears and her greatest enemy. The fight was about to begin, and Zara would either fall or rise forever changed. The night air was thick with tension as Zara crept through the underbrush toward the ancient stone altar deep within the forest, a place whispered about in fearful legends they barely dared to speak aloud. The ground was littered with bones and remnants of rituals bent to darker purposes, but Zara's resolve hardened rather than wavered. Every step forward was a battle against the past, the weight of generations pressed down on her shoulders. The curse was no mere superstition, but a living chain forged in blood and shadow. Suddenly, torches flared to life around her, revealing Victor and his corrupted followers, their eyes gleaming with malicious triumph. The air darkened with the stench of betrayal and power twisted. "You cannot run from your bloodline, Zara," Victor sneered, the cruel smile tugging at his lips. You belong to me, as much as the power that courses through your veins." Zara squared her shoulders, channeling every ounce of strength into her form. Her eyes flashed with a golden light that demanded attention. "I am not your pawn. I am the last nightshade Luna, and I will tear down everything you've built." The ground trembled as she shifted, her body transforming fully into the wolf she was meant to be, powerful and fierce. The battle erupted in a clash of wills and claws, fire and ferocity illuminating the darkness. Magic crackled through the air as the two forces collided. Zara's heart blazed with the fire of her ancestors, healing and fighting, overcoming pain with sheer will. In the chaos, memories of her mother's voice carried her forward. Strength is not just power. It is the courage to stand for what is right, even when all is lost. The fight was brutal, pushing Zara to the edge of her limits. But with every strike, every roar, she reclaimed a piece of her heritage stolen so cruelly. As dawn approached, Victor's forces faltered, his dark ritual undone by the purity of Zara's Luna power. Yet, the battle was not without cost. Wounds deep and scars that would shape the future of the pack. Exhausted but unbroken, Zara stood amidst the ruins. A new dawn heralding not just survival, but rebirth. But the war was far from over. Victor's dark influence lingered like a poison, and Zara knew that the choices she made now would echo through generations. The path forward was uncertain, shadowed by the past and the heavy price of power reclaimed. The aftermath was a bitter symphony of relief and grief. The pack gathered around those who had fallen, the air heavy with sorrow and determination. Caden's arms wrapped around Zara when her knees buckled, tears mixing with the dirt on her face. "We fought," he whispered, "and though it cost us dearly, we survived." Her mind was a tumult of memories, faces lost, betrayals uncovered, and the searing flames of rage that fueled her every breath. But beneath it all, something new bloomed: hope. She was not alone. She had a pack, flawed, fragile, but fiercely loyal. And in that moment, Zara understood what it truly meant to be Luna. It was not just power. It was sacrifice, love, and the strength to lead in the darkest of nights. The wounds of battle would heal, but the scars would remain as reminders of the price paid and the battles yet to come. Victor was defeated for now, but his shadow loomed still, waiting, watching, and Zara knew with unwavering certainty that the war had only just begun. As dawn filtered through broken branches, Zara closed her eyes, feeling the pull of her bloodline deep within. The power that had once terrified her now sang like a beacon, calling her to rise beyond the pain. She knew the road ahead would be fraught with trials, not just battles of fang and claw, but struggles of trust, leadership, and heart. But for the first time, she welcomed the challenge. She was Luna, and she would forge a future all her own. Chapter 6: Fireborn Transformation. The forest whispered secrets as Zara stepped into the ancient clearing where destinies were forged and broken. Moonlight bathed the glade in silver, but the air crackled with tension that set every nerve on fire. This was the place where the final battle would be fought, the confrontation that could end the darkness or consume them all. Caden stood at her side, his presence a steadying force against the storm of fear and fury within her. His eyes, storm-gray and fierce, bore into hers with unspoken promises. "Tonight," he said softly, "we fight not just for survival, but for the future." Zara nodded, the ember of her awakening power blazing ever stronger. The Luna inside her was no longer a flicker, but a roaring blaze, demanding release. And now was the time. The ground beneath them trembled as Victor and his corrupted followers emerged from the shadows, their forms twisted and darkened by vile magic. The air thickened with malevolence, a tangible poison that sought to crush hope before it could rise. Without hesitation, Zara stepped forward, her voice a clarion call that silenced the forest. "This ends now, Victor." A cruel smile split his face. "You think you can defeat me? I have fed on our bloodline for decades, but power alone would not be enough." As the fight erupted, Zara felt herself pulled apart and rebuilt by forces beyond her control. Pain seared through her bones as ancient magic flooded her veins. magic from ancestors she had never met, but whose strength now coursed through her. With a howl that echoed through the trees, she completed her transformation. Fur shimmering with silver and gold, eyes glowing with luminous power. She was Luna in her purest form, the embodiment of centuries of hope and rage. The battle was fierce and chaotic. Claws raked, teeth snapped, and spells flew like lightning bolts. Caden fought beside her, a tempest of raw strength and protective fury. Together, they were a force that even Victor's darkness struggled to withstand. At the climax, Victor unleashed a twisted spell designed to cripple Zara's power. But the bond between Luna and Alpha was stronger than any curse. Caden's sacrifice was sudden and devastating. He took the blow meant for her, collapsing to the ground. Pain and rage surged through Zara, channeling into a final, breathtaking display of her Luna power. The forest itself seemed to respond, ancient roots rising like serpents to bind Victor. The Dark Alpha's screams echoed as his magic was drained, broken by the purity of Zara's awakening. With the battle won but hearts heavy, Zara knelt beside Caden, tears mingling with sweat and dirt. "You would do it again," she whispered. "For me." He smiled weakly, reaching for her hand. "Always." The chill of dawn bled through the trees as the first light kissed the scars of battle. Maledictions shattered with the night's fading stars, and the world felt new again. Zara had broken the chains, not just for herself, but for the pack, for her ancestors, for the future. But the path forward was only beginning, and the price of victory would forever mark their souls. The battle was chaos incarnate. Howls echoed against snapped branches, and the clash of claws against enchanted armor split the silence of the night. Magic crackled and flared, illuminating faces twisted in rage and determination. Zara's heart pounded a primal rhythm, her senses heightened beyond mortal limits. Every strike was a dance of life and death. Victor's corrupted magic lashed through the air, a poisonous storm aimed at breaking her spirit. But Zara's Luna power burned hotter, weaving a shield of light that shimmered against the darkness. Caden fought with reckless fury, shielding Zara from blows meant to crush her resolve. Blood and sweat mingled as he pushed himself beyond human limits, the Alpha's duty clear in every ferocious movement. When Victor conjured a twisted curse meant to sever the bond between Luna and Alpha, Zara felt the world tilt dangerously. Pain exploded in her chest as Caden faltered, a dark wound blooming across his side. He stumbled but never fell, his eyes locking with hers in a silent promise. "Stay with me," Zara pleaded, hands glowing with healing light. But the cost was clear. Caden made a choice, a sacrifice that left her breathless. He took the full force of Victor's darkest spell, collapsing to the ground as his body was racked with agony. Rage surged through Zara, pure and searing. She raised her voice in a howl that shattered the night's silence, channeling every ounce of Luna's power. The earth trembled as ancient roots erupted from the soil, wrapping Victor in their binding embrace. Victor's screams were a symphony of defeat as his magic unraveled, broken by the force of purity unleashed. With trembling hands, Zara knelt beside Caden, tears mingling with blood and dirt. "You would do it again," she whispered. "For me." His smile was weak, but unwavering. Always. Dawn crept slowly over the horizon, casting pale light on the ravaged battlefield. The air was thick with the scent of earth and victory. Maledictions shattered along with the night's final shadows, and a fragile peace settled. Yet, amidst the triumph, lay the heavy truth. The path forward was fraught with sacrifice, and the price of survival would linger in their souls. Zara's eyes burned with determination, a fire reborn from ashes. She had embraced her destiny, not just as Luna, but as a leader who would carry the pack into a new dawn. The forest held its breath, watching the rise of its fire-born Luna. In the rising light of dawn, Zara reflected on the path that had brought her here. Every scar, every loss had shaped her. She no longer feared the darkness. It was part of her now, tempered by the strength she had claimed. Caden's sacrifice weighed heavy on her heart, a constant reminder of the stakes. Yet, in his sacrifice, she found new purpose. Their bond, forged in fire and blood, was unbreakable. The pack gathered to tend their wounds and honor the fallen. Their eyes held both sorrow and fierce hope. Zara spoke softly, her voice steady despite the turmoil within. "We are more than the sum of our losses. Together, we will rebuild." The elders nodded, recognizing the rise of Aluna, who was both fierce warrior and compassionate leader. Whispers of her transformation spread through the lands, hope for a future beyond the shadows. Yet, the war was not truly over. Dark forces still lurked in hidden corners, and the cost of victory had changed Zara forever. But she was ready for every sacrifice, every battle yet to come. For she was fireborn. The weeks that followed the battle were a crucible of healing and rebuilding. The Frost Pack slowly stitched their lives back together, their bonds strengthened by shared scars and the unyielding spirit of their Luna. Zara threw herself into her role with unrelenting determination. She trained harder, healed wounds with newfound skill, and embraced the weight of leadership with a fierce grace. Caden, weakened but alive, recovered under her care. Their bond deepened, not only of mate and leader, but as partners forged in the fire of survival. Through quiet moments and whispered promises, they rebuilt not just bodies, but souls. Political challenges emerged as neighboring packs watched the Frosts with wary eyes. Alliances were tested, and Zara found herself negotiating not just battles, but fragile peace. Her voice carried authority, her decisions tempered with the wisdom born of loss. The Luna once doubted by many now stood unshakable beside her Alpha. Even in moments of quiet, shadows stirred. Rumors of dark packs coalescing, of ancient threats reawakening, whispered through forest and glade. But Zara faced every challenge with fire in her heart and steel in her gaze. She was no longer the girl who had fled her past. She was a Luna reborn, a force unstoppable. And with Caden by her side, the Frost Pack would rise, fierce and unyielding. The sun rose high over the mountain peaks, casting golden beams that danced upon the frost-kissed earth. With it came renewal, not just of the land, but of the pack's spirit. Zara stood at the forefront, her silver-gold fur shimmering under the morning light. Around her, the pack gathered, their eyes filled with respect and hope. "We have survived the night," she declared, "and we will face the day together." Caden stepped beside her, strength returning to his stance. Hand in hand, they embodied the unity and resilience that had been forged through fire and blood. Though darkness would always lurk in the shadows, Zara knew that together, they were a light too fierce to be extinguished, and the future was theirs to claim. The battle was finished, but the journey was only beginning. Chapter 7. Bonds forged in moonlight. The war had been won, and yet the echoes of battle still rippled through the Frostpack's territory. The air hummed with newfound energy, but tension lingered, subtle yet persistent. Zara and Caden stood at the threshold of a new era, their bond deeper and more complex than ever. The claiming ritual was a sacred moment, a tapestry of ancient rites woven beneath the full moon's watchful gaze. Gathered around a ring of stones and lit by flickering torchlight, the pack watched in reverent silence as Zara and Caden prepared to unite in body, mind, and spirit. Zara's heart thudded a steady rhythm, equal parts fear and fierce determination. The scars of war were still fresh, and the weight of leadership heavy on her shoulders. But in Caden's eyes, she found a beacon of understanding and unwavering strength. "Tonight," Caden murmured, his voice low and steady, "we become more than Alpha and Luna. We become one." The ancient chant rose from the assembled shifters, words vibrating with power that seemed to reach into the very soul of the forest. As Zara stepped forward, the moonlight caught the silver-gold fur that marked her as Luna, and she felt the surge of ancestral energy flow through her. The ritual was more than ceremony. It was a binding, a fusion of destinies that sealed their connection beyond time and space. As their hands clasped, a pulse of light radiated from their joined forms, washing over the pack and uniting them in a wave of healing and renewal. The claim was complete, but it was only the beginning. Together, Zara and Caden faced a pack transformed, stronger, united, and ready to rebuild what had been broken. Days turned into weeks as the pair navigated the delicate dance of leadership and love. The Luna took on her new powers with grace and ferocity, her eyes forever glowing with the mark of her lineage. Caden was her steadfast partner, guiding, protecting, and challenging her in equal measure. Their relationship was a balance of strength and vulnerability, a union forged not in ease, but in the crucible of shared trials. The pack thrived under their guidance, the bonds between members deepening as old wounds healed and new traditions formed. The challenges from rival packs did not fade, but Zara and Caden met them with a combined force that was as unyielding as the mountains surrounding their home. In quiet moments away from the demands of the pack, Zara's transformation deepened. She discovered power she had only glimpsed in dreams, control over the natural world, deeper healing abilities, and the ability to inspire loyalty through sheer presence. But with power came responsibility. The bloody history of the Nightshade line was a shadow she could never fully escape. Yet, instead of shying away, she faced it head-on, determined to write a new chapter for her family and her pack. Her growth as Luna was mirrored by Caden's evolution as Alpha. He revealed parts of himself long hidden, a fear of losing those he loved, a deep-seated need to protect at all costs, and a tenderness reserved only for her. Their claim was witnessed not just by their pack, but echoed in the spirits of the forest and the silent stars above. In their unity lay the promise of a future unmarred by the brutal legacies of the past. But even as they embraced the hope of tomorrow, shadows stirred beyond the edges of their world. The threats were far from defeated, and the choices they made now would resonate for generations to come. In the quiet before dawn, Zara and Caden stood together, hands entwined beneath the pale light of a rising moon. "Whatever comes," Zara whispered, "we face it as one." And Caden's smile, filled with fierce love and unyielding strength, was an unspoken vow. The pack was theirs to lead, their bond unbreakable, and their story only beginning. The air was thick with sacred energy as each chant from the pack members wove around Zara and Caden, binding them closer not only to each other, but to their people. The stones surrounding the ritual glow faintly with ancient magic, pulsating in time with the rhythm of their joined hearts. Zara's mind flooded with memories of her ancestors, the Lunars who had come before her, powerful women and men who had shaped the pack's destiny. Their strength sang through her veins, filling her with a sense of purpose sharper than any blade. Caden's hand tightened around hers, warmth flowing like wildfire. His storm-gray eyes met hers, reflecting trust, passion, and an unspoken promise of protection that anchored her. The claiming ritual was more than a tradition. It was a ceremony that fused their souls, blending their strengths into one harmonious power. As the moonlight bathed them, golden light spiraled around their bodies, symbolizing the merging of lineage and loyalty. The pack's howls echoed into the night, a thunderous chorus of approval and devotion that sent shivers down Zara's spine. In those moments, she felt truly seen, not just as a leader or a warrior, but as a Luna who had endured and risen above. The following days were a whirlwind of renewal and adjustment. Zara and Caden navigated their new roles not only as bonded mates, but as co-leaders of a pack reborn. Each decision carried weight, balancing the legacy of old laws with the needs of a future they hoped to build. The political landscape was fraught with challenges. Neighboring packs eyed the Frost Pack warily, uneasy about the resurgence of the Nightshade Luna and the power that came with her bond to an alpha as formidable as Caden. Rumors whispered of alliances forming and breaking, old grudges simmering beneath polite agreements. Zara knew the battles ahead would require more than strength. They would demand wisdom, diplomacy, and an unshakable will. In private, the bond between Zara and Caden deepened beyond the rituals and responsibilities. Quiet mornings broke into shared smiles and lingering touches. Nights were filled with whispered promises, dreams, and the exploration of a love forged in fire and tempered by trust. Yet, amidst the warmth, fears lingered. The trauma of loss, the scars of betrayal, and the weight of expectations all haunted Zara's quieter moments. But with Caden's steady presence, she found solace and strength, the courage to face each day anew. Together, they forged a future not written in prophecy, but created by every choice, every sacrifice, every heartbeat shared under the moon's eternal watch. Theirs was a bond unbreakable, a love fierce and enduring, and a leadership destined to echo through the ages. The pack rallied behind their leaders with renewed vigor, their faith in Zara and Caden unshakable. Elders imparted ancient wisdom, warriors trained with fervor, and the young howled their loyalty to a future they believed in. Amidst the bustle, Zara found moments of quiet with Caden, their connection a sanctuary from the storm of leadership. They shared secrets and fears, laughter and tears, each encounter weaving a tighter web of trust. One crisp evening beneath the starlit sky, Caden traced the lines of a fresh scar on Zara's wrist, a mark from their recent battles. "Every mark tells our story," he murmured. "Wounds become badges of honor." Zara smiled softly, leaning into the warmth of his touch. "And every scar binds me closer to this pack. To you." But the shadows beyond the campfires flickered with danger. Spies and rivals lurked in the peripheries, watching for weakness, waiting to exploit any fracture. News arrived of shifting alliances, a hostile pack seeking to capitalize on the Frostpack's recent victories, encroaching territory and threatening the fragile peace. Zara convened councils and negotiated with fierce determination, wielding her Luna authority like a blade tempered by compassion. Her voice grew commanding yet empathetic, earning grudging respect where once there was doubt. Caden stood steadfast beside her, their leadership a balanced force that melded strength and strategy. Amid growing external pressures, they nurtured the internal heartbeat of their pack, a family forged by shared survival and unbreakable bonds. Together, they faced the looming trials, the path ahead uncertain, but their resolve unbroken. Each day dawned with new challenges, but also with hope, the promise of a legacy forged not in blood alone, but in the power of unity and love. As seasons shifted, Zara and Caden's claim echoed beyond the forests and mountains they called home. Their names became legends whispered in the glow of campfires, stories of a Luna who rose from the shadows and an Alpha whose strength could move mountains. But with legend came expectation. Old rivalries flared anew, and the political chessboard stretched wider and more complex. Through it all, Zara held firm, her silver-gold eyes a beacon for her pack and a warning to foes. She had embraced her destiny fully, not as a pawn, but as a queen dictating the game. In the quiet corners of their sanctuary, Zara and Caden prepared for the future that awaited beyond the horizon, the children they dreamed of, the peace they sought to build, and the legacy they promised to leave. Under a moonlit sky, their souls intertwined, echoing the eternal dance of light and shadow that defined their world. Chapter 8. New Dawn Rising. Months had passed since the decisive battle, and the Frost Pack had settled into a fragile new peace. The mountains stood eternal, their peaks glittering beneath a winter sun, guarding the pack's territory and secrets. Zara and Caden's leadership had ushered in a renaissance, a rebuilding not only of lands but of spirits. Life was a quiet symphony now, punctuated by moments of joy and the steady rhythms of pack life. Zara felt herself transforming beyond the Luna who had fought for survival. She was becoming the mother, the leader, the beacon her pack needed. Their home was a sanctuary, rebuilt from ruins, a place where pack members healed and thrived. The once fractured family now stood united, bound by loyalty and hope. Young shifters trained under watchful eyes, learning the ways of wolf and human alike. Zara's own body bore testament to the passage of time and new beginnings. Her silver-gold eyes shone with the light of a Luna reborn, and the gentle curve of a growing belly was a constant, beautiful reminder of the future she and Caden were bringing into the world. Caden, ever the steadfast alpha, had softened in ways both surprising and profound. His sharp gaze retained its steel, but his smiles had grown warmer, his protective nature deepened by the family they were building together. Amid daily rituals and training, moments stole quietly away for Zara and Caden, shared laughter over morning coffee, whispered plans for children, and the soft comfort of intertwined hands beneath a starlit sky. The pack's influence expanded, their territory respected, and their leadership sought. Rivals who once bickered now deferred, recognizing the power of an unbreakable bond between Alpha and Luna. Yet, peace was a delicate thread woven with vigilance. Rumors of distant unrest reached their ears, whispers of dark packs seeking to reclaim lost power, of old enemies gathering strength in shadows. Zara received word from trusted scouts that an ancient artifact, long thought lost, had been spotted beyond the northern ridge. Its power was said to rival even the Luna's own. The news rippled through the pack, a reminder that their story was far from over. Duty called with the weight of both legacy and future. In the quiet before dawn, one crisp autumn morning, Zara stood upon a hill overlooking the sleeping forest. The wind tugged softly at her hair, carrying scents of pine and earth. She placed a hand upon her belly, feeling the faint flutter of new life within. Beside her, Caden's voice was low and steady. "We've come so far." She smiled, eyes scanning the horizon painted with the first hints of sunrise. "And we still have a future to fight for." Hope blossomed, wild and free, as the new dawn rose over the frost pack. Together they would face whatever shadows awaited. United in love, strength, and purpose, their journey was only just beginning. The seasons turned, weaving through the frost pack's lands like a slow, steady rhythm of life and renewal. Under Zara and Caden's guidance, the pack not only survived but thrived. The wounds of battle, though still faint scars upon the landscape and their souls, gave way to laughter and songs echoing beneath the vast mountain skies. The little things, they made the greatest difference. Morning light spilling into the cabin kitchen as Zara prepared a simple meal, Caden's hands brushing against hers as they moved through the rituals of daily life. Quiet moments beneath the stars where dreams were shared and whispered promises forged a future brighter than any shadow that could dare to linger. Their home was filled with the gentle sounds of life, soft murmurs of healing chants, the play of young ones learning to shift, the comforting presence of elders passing down ancient lore. The pack's heartbeat became a symphony of hope and unity. Zara's growing belly was a symbol of all that had been won, and all that was yet to come. She often placed a hand tenderly upon it, feeling the subtle stir of new life, a legacy carried not just in blood, but in spirit and love. Caden watched her with a fierce protectiveness softened by awe. His alpha strength was tempered by tenderness, a balance that inspired loyalty and deep respect within the pack. Together they ventured beyond their borders, forging alliances and seeking out forgotten knowledge to secure the pack's future. Their names became synonymous with wisdom and strength, whispered across the territories like a rising storm. Yet peace was a fragile bloom in a garden shadowed by old enemies. Zara received word from scouts of rising threats, dark packs gathering, covenants rekindling ancient grudges fueled by thirst for power. Among these rumors came whispers of a powerful artifact, lost to time, but whispered to hold the essence of Luna's strength. Its reemergence could tip the scales towards light or darkness, and how the frost pack met this challenge would define an era. As autumn's chill swept through the forest, Zara and Caden stood together on a hill, the horizon awash with the soft light of dawn. Zara's hand rested over her belly, the promise of new life, a beacon against the shadows. "We've come far," Caden said, voice steady and sure, his eyes tracing the spreading light. "And there's so much more to fight for," Zara replied, hope rising like the sun before them. Their journey was far from over, but with love, courage, and the unbreakable bond they shared, the Frost Pack would face the future, undaunted, united, and unyielding. In the peaceful moments that followed, Zara looked around at the Frost Pack, a family forged through fire, battle, and unshakable loyalty. Each face told a story of survival and belonging. The young puppies played in the snow, their innocent laughter ringing like melodies in the crisp air. The elders shared stories beneath the twilight, imparting the wisdom of centuries to the next generation. The pack's roots ran deep, anchored by the unyielding spirit that Zara and Caden had nurtured. But beneath the calm surface, vigilance never waned. Shadows lurked beyond their sight, old enemies biding their time, dark forces seeking cracks to exploit. Zara knew that the strength of their bond and the unity of their pack would be tested again. But as she gazed into Caden's eyes, now filled with a tender light, She felt a resilience stronger than any threat. Plans were laid for the future. Schools to teach young shifters control and tradition. Councils to navigate the complex politics of the supernatural world. And a sanctuary that could stand against any storm. Love blossomed alongside duty. The bond between Zara and Caden deepened, the anticipation of their future children weaving hope through every challenge. Under the moon's eternal watch, they vowed to protect their family and their legacy, no matter the cost. For the journey ahead was vast, but their hearts were fierce and united. And so, beneath the rising moonlight, the Frostpack embraced a new dawn, a future shaped not by shadows of the past, but by the strength of those who dared to rise. As winter gave way to spring, the landscape blossomed around the Frostpack's sanctuary. Flowers pushed through the snow, and the trees stretched tall, their branches a canopy of hope and promise. Zara stood among her people, her gaze steadfast and clear. The weight of the pack's future pressed gently against her, a mantle she wore with quiet pride. The pack's influence stretched beyond their borders, their actions inspiring other shifters to unify, to rise from old grudges and pain. Correspondents arrived from distant packs, seeking guidance, alliance, and peace. Zara and Caden understood that their leadership was no longer just local. It was a beacon for a fractured world, but with greater power came greater threats. Whispers of a returning darkness wove through the winds, and old enemies stirred in forgotten corners. Plans were made to prepare, to protect the pack and all they had built. Warriors trained harder, scouts ventured farther, and the community tightened their bonds. Amid this preparation, Zara felt the gentle kicks of her unborn twins, a symbol of hope and renewal amid uncertainty. Caden's protective gaze never wavered, a constant shield against the looming shadows. The moon hung full and bright, a silent guardian over the Frostpack's lands. Beneath its glow, Zara and Caden vowed to face whatever came next together. No matter the darkness, no matter the storms ahead, they would stand unbroken. Their story was one of transformation, love, and enduring strength. And this new dawn was theirs to shape. In the quiet moments at twilight, Zara often reflected on the journey that had brought her from a scared girl hiding in shadows to the Luna, who now stood before her pack, a living symbol of resilience and hope. Beside her, Caden remained a pillar of strength and tenderness, his presence a reminder that even in the face of darkness, light could prevail. Their future was unwritten, a tapestry stretched wide with possibility and challenges yet unseen. Together, they would shape the legacy of the Frostpack, honoring the past while forging a path toward peace and strength. With every breath, they breathed life into a new era, a dawn rising with promise in its glow. And so, beneath the watchful gaze of the stars and the protective embrace of the mountains, the Frostpack thrived. Bound by love, tested by fire, and ready for whatever dawn awaited. The story of Zara and Caden may have reached its dawn, but countless other hearts still wander in darkness, seeking their own transformation and acceptance. These untold tales of love and redemption are waiting to be shared. If you're ready to join our pack and discover more supernatural romances, stories of forbidden bonds, second chances, and the power of finding your true self, we have an entire collection ready for you. Share your thoughts in the comments below and become part of our storytelling family. Hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss our next passionate journey. Thank you for being here with us tonight. Your time means everything to us. Until we meet again in the next tale.